Hi, my name is Joe Esposito. I worked for Elvis for 17 years. And in those 17 years, there was a period of time that I took a lot of home movies of Elvis during the 1960s. They were typical home movies, nothing professionally taken. And it was strictly just for home viewing at home. And over the past 20 years, I've had these in my closet. And I decided that I think all the fans in the world would love to see Elvis and the personal side of him and smiling, having a good time. The side of Elvis that is a personal side is fun-loving times, times with his friends, traveling cross country, on vacations, just showing a good, lighthearted side of him, smiling face, and the way I remember Elvis. I met Elvis in 1959. I was in the Army at the same time he was. We became Army buddies, played a lot of football together, did a lot of running around, went to Paris on vacation, and became very close. And then when I left the Army, Elvis asked me to go to work for him, and I was with him ever since. Back in the 1960s, Elvis used to love to drive back and forth from Los Angeles to Memphis, Tennessee between movies. We had this custom-made bus designed by George Barris in Los Angeles, and he used to get the biggest kick of driving it back and forth because he thought he was a truck driver. He always wanted to be a truck driver when he was young. So it was one of his fantasies that we'd drive back and forth between every movie, and we'd stop on the side of the road and get out and throw the football just for a little exercise. But we used to take forever driving across country. Elvis liked to take his time, never in a hurry. We used to take 3 or 4 days. We'd go 150 miles and we'd stop for overnight. This trip here, we were driving cross country during the day because most of the time we drove at nighttime. We brought the wives on this trip just to show them how it was driving cross country. And we were just typical tourists. We'd drive, stop to see the sights, get out on the side of the road, and get out and beat each other up just for exercise. People thought we were crazy when we were driving by, but they didn't know it was Elvis. If they knew it was Elvis, they'd really be surprised. Along with the bus, we'd have a car following behind us just in case the bus broke down, so we'd have somebody to go ahead and get some help or something like that. But here we are on the side of the road with all the guys, with Alan and Charlie, Marty. We're Priscilla, my ex-wife Joan, and we used to pull over to the side of the road just to get some exercise. We'd stop and Elvis would practice his karate on all of us. He'd get out and try to beat us all up, and we'd not really hurt each other. We'd punch each other pretty good, though. Elvis loved to practice karate on all of us. I mean, he thought he was Bruce Lee, I think, but we all had fun doing it. It was just great to work out. In one scene here, you see Elvis's arm and Billy Smith's arm, his cousin. They're black and blue. All our arms got black and blue. It was just to work out. We were all crazy, what can I tell you? One of the reasons Elvis loved these trips so much because he'd like to sing and drive at the same time, and Charlie and Red would all harmonize with him. I never sang because I couldn't carry a tune. But we had some great times driving cross country. We'd stop in hotels late at night. We'd check in, nobody would know we were there, and check out before anybody found out he was there, we'd be gone. One time we were in Amarillo, Texas, and a radio station found out we were staying there. When we woke up the next morning, we could not believe it. There was about 3,000 kids outside waiting for autographs. We got away from there okay, but we never went back to that hotel again. Here's where we stopped to see the Meteor Crater Lake in Arizona. It was just something that Elvis never saw before, and we never did either, so we thought we'd stop and look at the Meteor Crater here in Arizona, and became typical tourists. Elvis even took movies with Priscilla's camera. One time we were, when we left Memphis to go to Los Angeles to do a movie, we stopped in this service station in Arkansas. And this gentleman came out and started to pump gas in the bus, and he saw Elvis, and he said, boy, he told one of the guys, that guy sure looks like Elvis Presley. We said, no, that's not him, but everybody mistakes him for that. And so he walked over to Elvis and said, boy, he said, you really look like Elvis Presley. You have a spitting image of him. And Elvis naturally said, well, no, I'm not. I mean, everybody's told me that. He said, but we really felt bad that when we left there that we didn't really tell him that was Elvis, because he would have probably wondered all his life if that was really Elvis Presley. Some fans here recognized Elvis, some young kids, and as Elvis was, he'd always stop and sign autographs for his fans. Elvis and Priscilla got married on May 1st, 1967. This was probably one of the biggest highlights of my life with Elvis. We did fool the press good that week because they all thought we were going to get married in Palm Springs, because we all gathered in Palm Springs at the house that Elvis had rented there. But in the middle of the night before we flew to Las Vegas, we snuck out the back, went over the back wall, had a couple cars waiting for us, and we snuck off to Vegas. We had a Learjet chartered and another plane for the family members. flew into Vegas real quick, got there early in the morning, went right downtown and got the marriage license, went to the Latin Hotel and had the wedding. It was very exciting. We had a nice reception at the Latin Hotel for a few friends, and then we flew right back to Palm Springs and had a nice dinner with the family, and it was really quite a day. We surprised all the press that day, and it was good to know that we snuck something by them. A couple weeks later, we went to Memphis and had a wedding reception there at the Graceland for all the relatives and the friends that couldn't make it to Las Vegas. And had a good time. We enjoyed ourselves. Elvis and Priscilla got dressed in their same outfits they got married in, and her wedding gown and Elvis's tuxedo. These home movies I took were nice to look back at over the years and just reminisce. A lot of friends that we haven't seen in a long time. The wedding reception is held in the trophy room that is now the trophy room at Graceland today. And the trophy room was built to be a slot car track originally. Elvis got into slot cars for a while there, and he built this huge building just around the slot car track, and then it ended up as the trophy room. Vernon was very proud of his son, as you could tell, with a big smile on his face all the time. At the wedding, there was just a few friends and relatives. As you can see, it was just Priscilla's family, immediate family. Marty Lacker and I were his co-best man at the wedding. And then there was just a few friends, really, that were there because we tried to keep it as quiet as possible so it wouldn't get out. As you can see here, Elvis is carrying Priscilla across the threshold. Elvis was in a very romantic mood that day. He went out and picked Priscilla a very pretty rose from out of the backyard in the Palm Springs house. Elvis made 33 movies in his career, and I was there for about 29 of them. We had some great times on a lot of those movies. On location especially. Elvis was a big joker. He liked to pull tricks on people. As you can see in some of these shots, we would sneak around and put firecrackers under each other. We did some dangerous things, but nobody ever got hurt. We even got the crew involved. One thing about the Elvis movies on the sets, there was a great feeling on the sets because Elvis got along great with the crew, we got along great with them, and we'd always pull jokes on them, and so there was always a good atmosphere on the sets. The movies weren't that great, but we had some good times making them. I remember one time, the makeup man, Bill Reynolds his name was told us one time he was very frightened of snakes. So Elvis told me to go out and buy this non-poisonous snake. and I hid in one of the dressing rooms, and Elvis called him into the dressing room. He said, "Bill, I need to be touched up on some makeup." So Bill comes in, and Elvis jumps out of the door real quick, and I released this snake in the dressing room. And you should have seen Bill climb the walls. It was amazing, but Elvis thought it was funny. We could have killed the poor guy with a heart attack. He would do these practical jokes all the time. Some of the movies he really wasn't too thrilled with, like Easy Come, Easy Go. This one particular picture, he wasn't too thrilled with making this one. He wasn't thrilled with the water, and he had to be in the water a lot in this film. Elvis loved making movies at the beginning, but after the years, they started getting to become the same movies, different location, different girl, different kid, different animals. So that's why eventually he stopped making movies. But he wanted to continue making movies later on, but he wanted to direct movies. He always thought about in the future of being a director of action films. He loved action movies or comedies, and that's one of the reasons he stopped making features. During the 60s, when he was making the earlier movies, he did have some great times, though. He loved working with the crew. One thing about it, he had beautiful co-stars. There's no two ways about that. As you know, Elvis did not perform any live performances from about 1961 to about 1969 because he was committed to all these movies. He wanted to get back to performing live, and that's why he stopped making the features also at the time. Chris Morgan, the gentleman standing with his arms folded, that's Henry Morgan's son, the actor. He was the first assistant director on this one movie. And we became good friends. Chris is now a big Hollywood producer. Elvis had doubles in his movies because the studios would not let him do his own stunts. The stunt double here, Bob Curtis, was one of Elvis's stuntmen that dubbed him in a lot of our movies. Bob got killed recently in doing a stunt about a year and a half ago. Elvis did a few westerns in his years. One of the first westerns, Flaming Star, when he got out of the service, he wasn't too thrilled with horses, but later on he really got into riding horses. And we'll see later on where he's on the ranch, his own personal ranch. Burgess Meredith was in this movie, Stay Away Joe. We shot in Sedona, Arizona. Katie Gerardo was a co-star. This was a lot of fun making this picture, but it was very hot in Arizona at the time. It was like 116 degrees in the middle of the summertime. And we had to watch out for snakes, scorpions, but making movies was not that easy. Elvis's co-star, Burgess Meredith, in this movie, as you know, actually did a TV series with Priscilla Presley later on. Most of the guys working for Elvis at the time would all work somewhere in the picture. We'd work extra work, or we'd have small parts in it, because we were there on the set every day and we got along with everybody, and the director would choose different guys to work in different scenes. And Elvis didn't mind that at all. He didn't mind anybody making extra money. Colonel Parker would come out and visit the set every once in a while. He wasn't around too often. He was in his office taking care of business for Elvis. And he would come by and visit, and Elvis would talk a little business with him. And then he'd go back to the office and make some more deals. One thing about the Colonel, he was always there. Elvis is riding a Bronco bull in this scene here, but Elvis was so fast for him, the bull got away from him. A lot of fans would be standing around and watching, and here's a bunch of overzealous fans trying to get Elvis's autograph. But I'm only kidding. It's rehearsing a fight scene for the movie. As you can see, the camera's inside the car, shooting out through the window. And they rehearse this fight scene quite often. We shot 3 movies in Hawaii on location there. Elvis fell in love with Hawaii. After making a couple of those movies there, the people treated him so great over there, and they really respected him over there. They left him alone, to let him do whatever he wanted to do. And once in a while, we'd have celebrities come by and visit on the set. Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits came by to meet Elvis, and that's one of the people that Peter wanted to meet. But Hawaiian locations were just fabulous. I mean, the weather and the people, and as you could see, Elvis was very, had a great smile on his face, had a good time. Elvis made 3 movies there. One was Blue Hawaii, Paradise Hawaiian Style, Girls, Girls, Girls. I think Hal Wallace, the producer, also loved going to Hawaii locations. It gave him a good excuse to go over there. After making 3 pictures a year, Elvis got tired, and we would go to Hawaii on vacations. When we go to Hawaii, Elvis wouldn't go just like an ordinary person, just go and rent a hotel room. We'd go there and we'd rent the whole top floor of a hotel, usually the Hilton Hawaiian Village. We'd also have a house rented. We'd go spend our time at his house. We'd have our own private beach, and we'd just spend the whole day out there sunning, body surfing, snorkeling, even a little scuba diving. We weren't great swimmers, but we didn't go too deep in the water, but we had some good times. Elvis got sunburned a couple of times. That's why you'd see him wearing a t-shirt all the time. He wouldn't listen. We'd say, Elvis, you're getting red, but he was very stubborn. He had to do what he wanted to do. And whenever we went to Hawaii, we never went alone. There'd always be about 10 or 12 of us, because he liked everybody to have a good time with him. He loved enjoying his friends around. And as you can see, Elvis and Priscilla here are just having a great time this day. This is only about 3 months after Lisa was born. Priscilla looks great. One time, when I was getting a little tired of just being around the group for a long period of time, we would all get on each other's nerves after a while. And one time I went over to Elvis and said, Elvis, listen, I just got to get away for a couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to go to Hawaii and just relax. And he said, Joe, it sounds like a great idea. Let's all go. He forgot the reason I wanted to get away was to get away from him. But anyway, we all ended up, there was about 20 of us. We all went to Hawaii for about 2 or 3 weeks and just had a great time. And I enjoyed it with all of them. I never got away from them, but it was okay. We had a good time. We got away from them. In Hawaii, the people on the beaches that we rent these houses from, they would seem to tell everybody in the neighborhood to please just leave Elvis and the group alone. He was here on vacation. Just leave him alone. He wants to have a good time. And it's amazing. They wouldn't bother us for autographs. They'd stay away from our section of the beach. And I think that's one of the reasons Elvis loved Hawaii so much. And he'd go and get away and just relax, unwind, and do whatever he wanted to do. In the evenings, we'd go out to dinner at certain restaurants. They really didn't bother him there, which was amazing. That's why we spent so much time there. When Elvis got into something he liked, he would just do it for hours and hours. He started body surfing one day, and all of a sudden we were out there for 6-7 hours in the water. And he would not come out of the water. Naturally, we all had to stay in there with him. We all played our games, and it was great though, but we come out, we'd be like prunes. It's amazing. And then we start the next day, over and over again. Elvis loved to do things all the way. Here's a shot of Tom Jones that was performing there in Hawaii, and him and Elvis used to hang out a little together. And Tom came out to visit the house and spend the day at the beach. And in fact, I think that's the first time Elvis introduced Tom Jones to peanut butter. Elvis made him a peanut butter sandwich, and Tom had never tasted peanut butter before. Tom wasn't too thrilled with it. We chartered a boat one day to do some deep sea fishing. We couldn't get Elvis up early enough to start out early in the morning like you're supposed to. So we just went out for a boat ride, and I think this was probably Lisa Marie's first boat ride. I think she was 3 months old in this shot. So we just went out and took a cruise out in the ocean and had a nice afternoon. I always liked this shot. This is Priscilla and Elvis and his cousin Patsy and her husband Gigi. My ex-wife Joan is in there someplace. Elvis liked to do dangerous things if he could. That's why he liked speed, and he liked all kinds of dangerous little things. We're at the blowhole here in Oahu, on the big island of Oahu. Instead of standing up top like everybody else would look down at it, we all decided to go down and look inside of it. You know, it's supposed to be very dangerous if you fall in there. Some people have committed suicide in that blowhole, believe it or not. They jump in it and you never see them again. So we had to go down there and get soaking wet. The limousine we rented that day, the driver wasn't too happy with us when we got back up top, because we all got inside of the limousine and we were soaking wet. We completely ruined his limousine for that day. And then we decided to take the wives to see the Arizona Memorial. The Arizona Memorial was actually started by Elvis. He did a benefit in Hawaii in 1960, or 61 it was, to raise some money to build this memorial. And he started it off, and now it's one of the very big tourist attractions there in Pearl Harbor. So we took all the wives to on the Admiral's yacht to give them a tour of the memorial. Elvis really loved the United States. He would do anything for his country, and that's why he served in the Army without giving them a hassle. And that's why this was very touching, a charity show that he did for this. He really felt that this is something that he should do for them. From the hot weather to cold weather, Elvis loved the cold weather also. I mean, we'd go out motorcycle riding in freezing weather back in Tennessee. We spent a lot of time and vacations up where the snow was. We went up to Arrowhead, California, looking for houses to rent for the winter time. And then we went to Aspen and Vail, Colorado a few times. But Elvis, you know, he was not allowed to ski because we were making movies at that time, and we weren't allowed to ski because they were afraid he'd break a leg and we'd hold production up on the movies. So he decided to do some snowmobiling. So instead of just renting some snowmobiles, which I tried to talk him into, we rented a few of them, but he had to buy a couple of them for himself. He had to own the snowmobiles. So he bought two of them, or three of them while we were there on this one vacation up in Aspen, Colorado. And we used them for about a week, and then he just left them there. I ended up giving to him a good friend of ours named Ron Petrofesso, who lives in Denver, Colorado. But we'd spend days outside snowmobiling. I must admit, it was probably one of the better vacations we ever had. There's only about 6 of us. There's 3 couples. We just played password at nighttime and snowmobile during the day. One time, Elvis decided to go cross this open field, and so I decided to follow after him. And we sort of lost sight of each other, and I'm going along across this field, and all of a sudden I fell into this huge foundation that was being built for a home that was covered by snow, and this snowmobile fell on top of me. And luckily Elvis came along and dug me out. It was really a shock to just fall into a hole out of nowhere. But Elvis was there for me. All the vacationing we did around the world in different places, Elvis always loved to come back home to Graceland. He had more fun there than any place, I think. In the snowstorms, we'd stay outside all night and build snowmen. He would have a snowmobiles there, and he'd race them around the grounds. He felt more comfortable there than any place. Spent a lot of time there. And I lived there many years back in the 60s before my family got big. And it was just nice to have all that property to ourselves, and we'd have birthday parties there. There was a surprise birthday party for Priscilla here that we have on film, one of the few. It was just, what can I say, our own little world. We had some great times together, and we just enjoyed doing things together ourselves. One day in Palm Springs, we just stopped by to see Colonel Parker and his wife. At the time, we brought him a little birthday present for the Colonel that day. Elvis would stop by and just say hello to the Colonel. They had a very good relationship, but Elvis took care of his business and the Colonel took care of his business. And that's just the way it was. They were great together. One Christmas, Elvis decided to buy Priscilla a horse for Christmas. Well, then he realized if he bought her a horse, he'd have to have another horse for somebody else to ride, so she'd have somebody to ride with. So he bought a horse for one of the other guy's wives to ride with. But then he thought, well, maybe I should get a horse. And before you knew it, he started buying horses for everybody. We all ended up with a horse. And then Elvis, as we talked about before, he loved to do things all the way. So he figures, well, if we got a horse, we got to have a ranch to ride these horses. So then we started looking for a ranch, and Elvis and Priscilla saw this beautiful ranch in Mississippi. It was just absolutely gorgeous. It was like a beautiful golf course. It was just rolling hills. We ended up buying this ranch in about a week. And then he said, okay, now we have to have trucks to go with this ranch. So we ended up buying like 30-something trucks. We bought trucks for everybody. And and we all moved out into the ranch. He bought house trailers for all the guys, and we just spent about a year on this ranch between movies, riding horses and being typical ranchers. But that's the way Elvis was. He loved to do things all the way. This is a big barbecue we threw at the Circle G Ranch one day. We spent a lot of time together, all our friends, Jerry Schilling and his wife Sandy, Billy's cousin Billy Smith, and Marty Lacker and his wife. We just were very, very close. Elvis felt very comfortable around his friends. It was like our own little world. It lasted for about a year and a half at the ranch, but then Elvis finally sold it. He got tired of it, and he went on to something else. We started touring, and we really didn't have much time for this anymore. So at the end of our episode with the ranch, it was sad, but it was just part of our life. People always ask me what I remember most of Elvis. And I say, I remember Elvis as the smiling faces, man. I remember at the hardest times when you were down, and he'd always have a nice conversation and keep you smiling. And that's why I want you to remember Elvis smiling all the time. That's the way I remember Elvis.